Hey, welcome back to another day of wisdom from the Word. We're in the book of Proverbs. We're on Proverbs chapter 3 today. If you haven't yet read this chapter of Proverbs, it's a little bit longer. It's 35 verses. If you want to take a couple of minutes, just pause this video and go ahead and read this chapter of Proverbs. And then come back to the video, and we're going to talk our way through this to get to our one-word synopsis, to get to the center of that jelly donut today. Go ahead and push pause. Okay, so we're back. So this the further benefits of wisdom, Proverbs chapter 3. So Proverbs chapter 1 was really our one-word synopsis was listening. It's being committed to listen fully, to respect and honor the person enough, meaning also the word enough, to listen fully and completely. Proverbs chapter 2 was about application, not just having knowledge. Remember, I talked about the diet books and reading the diet books, but then not doing the diet books. I could talk about them all day long, but not do them. Proverbs chapter 2 is about application to what you've heard, what you're listening to. Apply what you're listening to and never give up on that practice of applying. Even when you're tired, even when you're weary, keep practicing that application. Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3 has a really unique storyline woven through it. And the storyline is about trust. The key verse in Proverbs chapter 3 is in verse 5 and really in verse 6 as well. It's this: trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Now, this verse, I'm gonna focus most of our attention on this verse today because it really is the key to understanding the rest of Proverbs chapter 3 and how we can apply Proverbs chapter 3 in our life. The word trust, one of the toughest 5-letter words in the English language. How do we trust? Trust requires surrendering something of ourselves into someone else's hands. When we trust our money to the bank, or we trust our heart with our spouse or people we love, we trust that they're not going to forsake what we've given them, that they're going to do their best with what we've given them. Trust is a tough word because it's become so easy in our culture to lie and to deceive and to manipulate. In fact, there are people who make their living completely on this, whole industries that make their living just out of deception and mistrust. But the Bible directs us in a different path. Proverbs chapter 3 begins with, don't forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart. Trust the word. Goes on to verse 3, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck and write them on the tablet of your heart. Love and faithfulness, love and faithfulness. This is about trust in relationships. Let love and faithfulness never leave you, but put them around your neck so they're visible everywhere you go. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Verse 5, trust in the Lord. Gosh, sometimes this is so challenging to trust the Lord. But I want to explain to you what this actually means. When I trust in the Lord with all of my heart, and my heart is made up of two things. It's made up of my soul and my spirit. My soul is my mind, my will, and my emotions. It's the place that I make my choices often out of my mind, my will, and my emotions. But when I became a believer, and when you became a believer in Jesus, what happened is, in my heart, that area of my spirit that's created where God is inhabiting, here's what happened. It was dead, and now when I say yes to Jesus, he comes in through the Holy Spirit, and now it's alive. And there's a constant battle between my soul and my spirit. My spirit is who God has created me to be, and perhaps in Proverbs chapter 8, we'll have this discussion in depth. But my spirit is who God originally intended me to be when he knew me before the foundations of the world. And because of sin, my soul has taken over dominance in my heart to control my spirit that is filled with the Holy Spirit. There's a constant battle. Paul describes this battle as a wrestling match within us. How many of you can relate to that wrestling match? I know what I should do, but I can't do it. I always end up doing the things I don't want to do. You see, trust in the Lord with all of your heart, meaning with both components of your heart, with your soul, your mind, your will, and your emotions, meaning your capacity to make decisions, and with your spirit. Don't lean on your own understanding only, but acknowledge Him. What does it mean to acknowledge Him? What it means to acknowledge Him is, it's this word yada, Y-A-D-A, in the Hebrew language, and it means to seek His opinion and yield. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. Yada. In all of my ways, to seek His opinion and acknowledge His opinion and then yield. Yield my will to His will. And then He will make your path straight. Now, many times this gets confusing that, oh, well, my path would be straight and I wouldn't have so many pit stops or so many off-ramps in my life if I acknowledged Him and I sought His opinion. That's true, but it goes a step further. Soccer players will understand this principle. Football players will understand this principle. In a team sport, there are components and players moving on the pitch or on the field. And especially for football players in American football, you'll recognize that there is a path through. There's all of a sudden the offensive line will block and move the defensive line or the linebackers or the safeties. They'll move them out of the way, and the running back or who has the ball, the wide receiver, recognizes that there's an open path. And when he sees the path, he can pursue the path. It may not be the original call that he thought he was going to be doing. It may not be the original direction he thought he was going. But you see, this principle in Proverbs is that when I go this direction, I'm not just focused solely on my path. I'm waiting, I'm yielding, I'm seeking God's intended wisdom for my life. I'm seeking His guidance. And then I'm yielding as I see the path open that He determined, that I'm willing to change direction and move that way. You see, it helps me to recognize that I don't stop in life unless I am at at a junction where I just really don't know what to do. When I'm brokenhearted, that's when I'm intended to stop. Because now I need to find some healing time. But in the midst of a busy life, it's really tough to stop. And I'm not suggesting that you actually stop. I'm suggesting that you be aware that in my path, there are pathways that God will open up that are more direct, that are intended for me. Go that direction. Let's continue on. Verse 9 says, honor the Lord with your wealth. This is a statement about trusting the Lord with your finances. How hard is it to be generous when things are so tight that God is speaking to our hearts to say, be generous, give to your church or give to your family or give to the people who are in need. Be generous. Be generous. And yet, we have to trust the Lord with our money to do that. Verse 11, this is a tough one because a lot of people don't like correction, but to be willing to trust the correction from the Lord. Now, verses 13 through 18 are really a treatise on biblical understanding and continuing to pursue biblical wisdom in our lives and trusting that biblical wisdom is a benefit into our lives. And then verse 25 and 26 goes on with provision and that the path that God has given us, have no fear of sudden disaster or the ruin that overtakes the wicked, for the Lord will be your confidence and He will keep your foot from being snared. When hard times come, like this COVID-19 virus, don't allow your heart to get anxious. Continue to come back to the Lord. Trust His provision. He will provide. He will provide. He will provide. Then on to verse 27 and 28. Trust that God is in your opportunities for generosity. Do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, come back later. I'll give it to you tomorrow when you now have it with you. Here's the principle. In order for me to be in the moment, to be generous in the moment, in order for me to trust the Lord and to move in the path that He has designed for me, even though it may not be exactly what I thought it was in the beginning, it may not be the path that I chose, but it's the path He chose, that I'm willing to trust Him. I'm willing to trust His word. I'm willing to trust Him with my finances, with provision for my life. I'm willing to trust Him with my health and the opportunities in my days. You see, when I listen and I apply and I trust Him, what I'm doing is I'm operating in wisdom. Proverbs chapter 3 is about learning to trust. Continuing to dig in, learning to trust. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge Him in all of your ways, meaning yield. Seek Him out and then be willing to yield. And He will make the path clear so that you can pursue it. Hey, thanks for joining us for Proverbs chapter 3. I'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for Proverbs chapter 4. God bless you.